Would you risk your soul to stop an ancient curse? When Rebecca returns to her family's forgotten farm in the Appalachian woods, she uncovers a sinister bloodline bound to a monstrous entity known only as the Veiled One. Strange whispers, grotesque apparitions, and forbidden rituals pull her deeper into a nightmare that claimed her parents and now targets her. As the line between reality and horror collapses, Rebecca must confront horrifying family secrets and make an unthinkable sacrifice to contain the evil. But some doors, once opened, are never truly closed. Nathan Cole tightened his grip on the steering wheel as the rental truck rumbled along the cracked, winding road. Pines, dense and ancient, loomed on both sides like silent witnesses to something unspeakable. Their spindly fingers reached toward the narrow strip of gray sky as dusk crawled across northern Pennsylvania. He glanced at the printed directions resting on the passenger seat, a printout from an outdated county records database, and a hand-drawn map from an elderly woman at the local diner who had offered him one piece of advice: don't stay past nightfall. The woods don't forgive trespassers after dark. Nathan had smiled politely then, thinking it was just local superstition. But now, as the shadows grew longer and the world narrowed to the bouncing beam of his headlights, her words gnawed at him. The old family cabin waited somewhere up ahead. Technically, it wasn't his. Not yet. The estate papers named him sole heir after his Uncle Joseph's mysterious death. But Nathan had never even met the man. The cabin had been abandoned for over 30 years, left to rot amid whispers of bad luck, disappearances, and a dark family secret that no one in the Cole bloodline dared speak aloud. Nathan had driven 7 hours from Philadelphia for this, a rundown piece of land he wasn't sure he even wanted. A flash of movement zipped across the road, causing him to slam the brakes. The truck skidded slightly on the loose gravel. Nothing, only trees. His breathing slowed, but his heart didn't. He pressed on. Minutes later, the narrow path widened into a small clearing. In the fading light, the cabin revealed itself. Weather-beaten, leaning slightly, as if exhausted from years of standing against storms, both natural and unnatural. Its roof sagged under patches of moss. The windows were boarded with crooked planks. Vines crawled up the sides like veins feeding on the decaying wood. The air here felt heavier, thick with damp earth and something else, like old breath trapped beneath the soil. Nathan killed the engine. The silence was immediate, absolute. Even the wind had died. He stepped out, boots crunching against the dirt and brittle pine needles. The clearing smelled of rot and iron, and when the breeze returned, it carried with it that faint, inexplicable voice. Not words, but something that mimicked the cadence of whispering. He told himself it was the wind playing tricks. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. He was here for one reason: to assess the property, photograph it, and put it up for sale. Still, as he approached the front porch, Nathan felt the fine hairs on his neck rise. The wooden steps creaked beneath his weight, like something exhaling underfoot. The front door was unlocked. The interior smelled worse than outside: mildew, wet wood, and a sour undertone of something organic. Light filtered in through small gaps in the boards, creating stripes of pale illumination across the dusty floorboards. Nathan swept the beam of his flashlight across the room. An old rocking chair sat in the corner, its seat splintered and sagging. A broken oil lamp lay on the floor, its glass shattered into spiderwebs. The wallpaper peeled like dead skin. But what drew his eye wasn't the decay. It was the large symbol carved deeply into the wall behind the fireplace. A crude circle with intersecting lines, almost like a star trapped within. He took a step closer, flashlight trembling slightly. Burn marks radiated from the symbol, as if flames had licked it but never fully consumed the wood. Around the base of the fireplace, Nathan noticed something else: small bones. Dozens of them, carefully arranged in a spiral pattern. Animal bones, he told himself. They had to be. In the silence, a soft shuffle sounded above him, and Nathan froze. The cabin had a second floor. Uncle Joseph's journals had hinted at it, though most town records omitted any mention of additional rooms. When the property was built in the late 1800s, It had served as both homestead and hunting lodge. Locals spoke of ritual gatherings deep in the woods during those early years, secret societies, religious sects, perhaps even something darker. He shone his flashlight upward, following the narrow staircase that curled like a withered spine toward the second floor. The shuffle came again. This time it was unmistakable. Another animal, or raccoon, or something else. His rational mind clashed with instinct. He could leave right now, drive back to the motel, and return in daylight. But something compelled him to stay. Not curiosity. Obligation, perhaps. Or an invisible tether pulling him into the very heart of his family's buried sins. Nathan climbed the stairs slowly, each step moaning under his weight. At the top, a narrow hallway stretched ahead, flanked by 2 doors. The air smelled even staler here, as if no one had breathed it in decades. He chose the door on the right first. The bedroom was sparse. A small iron-framed bed sat in the corner, its mattress caved and torn. A wooden wardrobe leaned precariously against the wall. On the floor, half covered by fallen plaster, lay a journal, its leather cover cracked, pages yellowed. Nathan knelt and picked it up. The cover bore his uncle's name, Joseph Cole. The first page contained only one sentence, written in a shaking hand. "The voices will not leave." Nathan flipped further, eyes scanning fragmented entries. Rituals, sacrifices, invocations, and repeated references to the whispering pines, as if the forest itself held dominion over the land and its inhabitants. Drawings of strange figures filled several pages, tall, faceless beings, surrounded by symbols matching the one carved downstairs. Then a name appeared multiple times. The Veiled One. The shuffle returned, louder, coming from behind him now, from the hallway. Nathan stood sharply, heart hammering. The second door creaked open on its own. For a brief moment he saw movement inside, the outline of something tall, impossibly tall, gliding just beyond the flashlight's reach. And then, nothing. The air seemed to thicken, and a deep vibration pulsed beneath his feet, almost like a heartbeat coming from the ground itself. Nathan took one involuntary step backward, breathing shallow and fast. "Leave," a voice rasped softly. No longer carried by wind, but formed by intent. The air grew cold. Breath misted from Nathan's lips. And then, as quickly as it began, everything fell silent again. Nathan swallowed hard, his throat dry and tight. The second door before him hung ajar, like an invitation. Or a threat. The faint glow of his flashlight trembled across the opening, illuminating nothing but stale air and peeling wallpaper. Yet that brief glimpse of something tall, moving, moments earlier still haunted his peripheral vision. He took a cautious breath and whispered under his own breath, as if speaking too loudly might awaken something. "It's just an old house." But even as the words escaped his lips, Nathan didn't believe them. He edged forward, pushing the door open fully with the tip of his boot. The hinges groaned in protest, releasing a metallic shriek that seemed to reverberate far longer than it should have. The room beyond was smaller than he expected. An office or study of some sort. Shelves lined the walls, weighed down with old books and jars containing unidentifiable contents suspended in cloudy liquids. The sharp scent of formaldehyde stung his nose. In the center stood a heavy oak desk, its surface cluttered with yellowed papers, broken fountain pens, and melted candle stubs. Symbols, similar to those carved downstairs, were scratched deep into the wood, intersecting in complex patterns. Nathan recognized some from the journal he had just found. Ancient sigils, possibly ritualistic, perhaps protective or binding. A large leather-bound book sat open in the middle of the desk. The pages were stained and torn, but legible. The language was archaic. Latin mixed with phrases that looked like no language Nathan recognized. His fingers hovered above the text but did not touch. It felt wrong to touch. On the far wall, above a rusted radiator, hung a series of framed photographs. Nathan lifted his flashlight to examine them. Each photograph depicted a different member of his family, going back generations. Stern-faced men in outdated suits, women in lace gowns, all posing before the cabin's porch or standing stiffly in front of the pine woods. Their eyes, all of them, seemed wrong. Vacant. Almost too dark. In the last frame, slightly askew, was a photo of his Uncle Joseph. Unlike the others, Joseph stood alone inside the forest itself, shrouded in early morning fog. His expression was one of unease, part fear, part resignation, and behind him, barely visible through the trees, Nathan thought he saw an indistinct shape. A shadow, tall and featureless, blending with the pines. Suddenly a loud thump echoed beneath the floorboards, shaking the desk slightly. Nathan spun around, flashlight darting. Nothing. But then he heard it again, this time clearer. Not just a thump, a rhythm, like heavy, deliberate footsteps rising from the basement beneath him. He had not seen a basement door. The journal had not mentioned one. And yet, someone, something, was moving directly beneath where he stood. A fresh wave of cold sweat spread down his back. Without fully deciding, his legs began moving, carrying him back down the staircase, each step protesting louder than before. His flashlight beam danced erratically across the decaying walls, his pulse quickening with every creak, every whispering draft. Once on the ground floor, he scanned the room more carefully. The living room, the fireplace, the symbol carved into the wall. He had seen these already, but behind the old armoire, leaning near the kitchen, something new revealed itself. A narrow wooden door, partially concealed by fallen boards. Nathan hesitated, his breath quick and shallow. The door was ajar. The space behind it exhaled a breath of frigid air that smelled of earth, mildew, and something ancient. A steep staircase descended into pitch blackness. He stood at the threshold for a moment that felt suspended in time. "This is a mistake," his rational mind whispered. "But you have to know," something deeper answered. He descended. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell thickened until it coated his throat. His flashlight barely pierced the heavy dark as the basement revealed itself. A single large chamber, lined with stone, like a forgotten tomb beneath the house. In the center stood an altar. He was made of rough-hewn rock, stained dark with age or blood. Symbols, deeper and more intricate than the ones upstairs, had been carved into its face. Strange wooden idols stood on the shelves surrounding the space. Long, faceless humanoid shapes with sharp antlers sprouting from their heads. Around the altar, countless bones littered the ground. Far too large for a small animal. Nathan's stomach twisted. Some of these bones were unmistakably human. Behind the altar, a crude mural had been painted onto the stone wall. It depicted the pines rising like towers into a blackened sky, their branches twisting into gnarled hands. In the center stood the Veiled One, tall, cloaked, its face concealed behind what looked like a hanging funeral shroud. Below the figure were rows of tiny, kneeling human forms, offering up sacrifices beneath an ominous full moon. Nathan staggered back, bumping into a wooden support beam, sending a hollow echo through the chamber. And then, from behind him, the voice came again. Not in his head this time, not the wind, but right behind his ear. "You've returned to the blood, Nathan." The beam of his flashlight flickered violently. Something moved within the shadows. A tall silhouette, unfolding itself from the corner, as if detaching from the wall itself. Nathan's scream caught in his throat as the light failed entirely, plunging him into absolute blackness. Nathan awoke gasping, drenched in sweat, eyes darting wildly as his body jolted upright from the cabin floor. It took him several moments to realize where he was. Back in the living room, sprawled beneath the cracked ceiling fan, daylight pouring through the shattered window. The last thing he remembered was the basement, the altar, the voice, the silhouette. He touched his shoulder instinctively. His skin was cold, but unmarked, no bruises, no scratches. It was as though nothing had touched him at all, but something had. The silence inside the cabin was now oppressive, almost staged, as if the house itself was watching him, waiting for him to move again. Dust floated lazily through the air like tiny ghosts suspended in a slow, deliberate dance. Nathan rose shakily, his muscles stiff and weak. His flashlight lay a few feet away, cracked but still functional. He retrieved it, clicking it on instinctively, though daylight now illuminated most of the room. He noticed his phone flashing faintly from the mantelpiece where he had left it earlier. No signal. Still, he tried not to curse out loud. Instead, he sat on the edge of the moth-eaten couch, his mind swirling. Did I dream it? Hallucination? Sleepwalking? Or… The weight of the unanswered questions settled on his chest like a stone. The deeper truth was far more unsettling. Part of him already knew that what happened wasn't a dream. Nathan stood, forcing himself to move, needing fresh air. He stepped outside the cabin, into the damp morning light. The towering pine trees surrounded him like silent sentinels, their tops swaying gently in the breeze, but something about them still felt wrong. They leaned inward ever so slightly, as if bending toward the cabin in a secretive huddle. The air smelled of wet soil and decaying needles. The cold seemed heavier here, thicker than any mountain morning should be. The fog from last night still lingered, curling around the trees like pale fingers unwilling to let go. Nathan pulled his jacket tighter. He needed answers. The journal from last night might hold them. And he remembered clearly that it mentioned someone. The last person to correspond with his Uncle Joseph before he vanished. Rebecca Miles. Her name circled his thoughts like a beacon in the fog. Before leaving town, Nathan had managed to find an old address listed under her name in the county records. Its cottage, isolated along a dirt road at the far edge of Brackenridge County, some 30 minutes from the cabin. She had been one of the last people involved in his uncle's research on the Whispering Pines legends. If anyone knew what was happening here, it was her. Determined, Nathan returned inside, stuffed the journal into his backpack, and grabbed the car keys. The cabin, despite its heavy atmosphere, seemed momentarily still, as if granting him permission to leave. The distant chanting grew louder, a dissonant murmur bleeding through the walls of Rebecca's cottage. The words were indistinct, not English, not any language Nathan recognized, but there was rhythm in them, as if a ritual older than memory was being recited. Nathan's skin prickled. "Who are they?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Rebecca didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the curtained window, where the wind pulled at the fabric as though unseen hands were brushing against it. "They serve it," she finally said, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "They call themselves the Devoted. Generations of them have lived in Brackenridge, hidden, waiting, worshiping. The locals? The townspeople?" Nathan pressed. "Not all. Most don't even know the truth, but a few families, old bloodlines. Their roots go back to when settlers first arrived. They made a pact." Her voice dropped thick with dread. "They traded safety for servitude." Nathan's stomach nodded. "With the Veiled One?" Rebecca nodded. "It grants them prosperity, health, even unnatural longevity. In return, they feed it, sacrifices, offerings," she glanced at Nathan meaningfully, "and fresh blood whenever an outsider stumbles too close." The full weight of her words settled in Nathan's chest like a stone. "My uncle, Joseph, was he sacrificed?" Rebecca's eyes flickered. "No, he offered himself, willingly." Nathan recoiled. "What? It? Thought he could control it. Study it. Bargain. Like the Devoted do." She shook her head bitterly. "But it cannot be controlled. Joseph was consumed, like all the others." Nathan's thoughts spiraled. The journal entries, the obsession, the whispered warnings from last night, they all pointed to this horrifying truth. "But why me?" he demanded. "Why now?" Rebecca exhaled deeply. "Because you carry his blood. You're part of the line now, and once marked, the Veiled One doesn't let go easily." Nathan felt dizzy. The room swirled slightly, the old wooden beams creaking above him like the house itself was breathing. Suddenly, a loud thud struck the side of the cottage. Both froze. The chanting stopped abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence so thick it seemed to muffle the very air. Rebecca's face went pale. "They're here." Before Nathan could react, the windows darkened as shadows passed by outside. Silhouettes moved, tall and thin, their limbs unnaturally long, faces obscured by dark veils of cloth that seemed to flutter despite the stillness of the air. The devoted. Rebecca pulled Nathan quickly toward a hidden trapdoor near the hearth. "We don't have much time," she whispered urgently. "Downstairs." Without argument, Nathan followed her into the narrow crawl space beneath the cottage. The small earthen chamber smelled of damp stone and aged soil. The only light came from a single oil lantern Rebecca had already lit. As the hatch closed above them, the sound of the front door creaking open echoed through the floorboards. Footsteps, multiple pairs. Nathan's breath caught. His heartbeat pounded in his ears like a war drum. He could make out muffled voices above, speaking in that same strange cadence as the chanting earlier. Rebecca crouched beside him, whispering rapidly. "They won't leave until they find you. The marking draws them, but there may still be a way." Nathan swallowed hard, keeping his voice low. "How?" Rebecca reached into an old cedar box beside her, retrieving a small leather-bound volume far older than the journal Nathan carried. Its cover was cracked and dry, embossed with symbols Nathan vaguely recognized from Joseph's notes: crude eyes, inverted trees, and concentric rings. "This is the original scripture," she said, "the Devoted's book. My family stole it generations ago when we broke from the cult. There are passages, protective rituals, ancient words that might mask you. Temporarily." Nathan glanced nervously upward as floorboards above groaned under shifting weight. "Will it work?" Rebecca's face tightened. "If you believe nothing else, believe this. The Veiled One feeds on fear. It smells desperation. The stronger your will, the weaker its grip. But if you break, if you falter..." She trailed off. Nathan understood. Steeling himself, he nodded. "Do it." Rebecca began reciting from the book in a low, melodic tone. The words were guttural, almost painful to hear, vibrating strangely in Nathan's chest like an unseen hand was plucking invisible strings inside him. The air in the crawl space thickened, the temperature dropping sharply. Nathan closed his eyes, trying to focus on his breathing as the energy around him shifted unnaturally. Suddenly, another loud crash shook the cottage. Above them, the trapdoor handle rattled violently. "They know where we are," Rebecca hissed, her voice shaking now. "The masking is working, but only barely." A loud voice boomed from above, speaking English now. "Return him to us, Rebecca. You know the price." Nathan stiffened. The voice was neither entirely human nor fully monstrous. Something in between. Rebecca squeezed Nathan's arm tightly. "We must leave before nightfall," she whispered, "or there won't be a place left to hide." As if to punctuate her words, a sharp, inhuman screech pierced the cottage from outside, a sound like tearing metal mixed with a howl of wind. Nathan's stomach churned. He had only arrived 2 days ago. Now he was entangled in a nightmare older than the nation itself. Scene transition. The drive to Rebecca Miles. The old Jeep bounced along the uneven gravel road as Nathan made his way deeper into the county's forested backroads. The further he drove, the narrower and more treacherous the path became. Civilization had long since faded in the rearview mirror. The trees here grew closer together, almost unnaturally tight, creating narrow corridors of shifting light and shadow. In the distance, the faint calls of unseen birds echoed strangely, warping as though carried through a tunnel. Nathan noticed the strange carvings along the trees again. Notches, symbols etched into their bark, crude circles, intersecting triangles, and strange eye-like sigils that made his stomach tighten. Were these from Joseph? or from something older. He shook the thought away. After nearly 40 minutes, he finally spotted a small mailbox barely visible in the thicket. The name Miles barely legible under a layer of moss. The cottage was even more remote than he'd imagined. It stood slightly sunken into the earth, leaning as though the weight of years had slowly bowed its spine. Thick vines strangled its exterior, and faded wind chimes rattled softly in the breeze. Beyond it, the woods pressed even closer. Nathan parked the Jeep and approached the door, nerves prickling under his skin. The knock he delivered was firm but polite. For a long moment, nothing. Then the sound of a lock turning. The door opened a crack. An elderly woman peeked through, her sharp blue eyes scanning Nathan with immediate suspicion. Her skin was thin, almost translucent, her silver hair tied tightly back. "Yes?" Her voice was steady but cautious. "Miss Miles?" Nathan asked. "I'm Nathan Caldwell, Joseph Caldwell's nephew." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes widened ever so slightly. She opened the door further. "You shouldn't have come here," she said flatly. Nathan swallowed. "I need your help. It's about Joseph and the cabin, the Whispering Pines." At that, her thin lips pressed into a hard line. She studied him for another moment before finally stepping aside. "Come in," she said. Scene transition, Rebecca's cottage. Inside was surprisingly warm and well-maintained compared to the decaying cabin Nathan had come from. Stacks of old books filled every available surface, while faint incense lingered in the air. Candles sat in tall holders near every window. Some burned down to wax puddles. Rebecca moved slowly but deliberately to the kitchen, setting a kettle to boil. Nathan remained standing, unsure whether to sit. "You're already marked," she said suddenly, her voice softer now but tinged with something like pity. "I can see it on you." Nathan felt his throat tighten. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer directly. Instead, she returned to the table, placing a chipped mug before him. "My brother warned me you might come someday." "Your brother?" "Joseph. We weren't just friends. He was my half-brother." She paused. "We both studied the old religion tied to those woods, but he went deeper than I dared." Nathan's mind raced. He had never heard any of this from his family. "The Veiled One," she continued, "is older than this land. Before the settlers, before the native tribes even spoke of it. It doesn't live in the forest." She looked directly at him. "It is the forest." Nathan's breath quickened. "I saw it. I know." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And now it sees you." The moment Rebecca pulled Nathan from the crawl space, they bolted into the creeping dusk. The last light of day struggled behind skeletal branches as they crossed into the edge of Brackenridge's dense outer woods. The fading sun did little to chase away the chill sinking deep into Nathan's skin, nor the dread crawling along his spine. The trail was narrow and overgrown, as if intentionally swallowed by time. Rebecca moved with practiced precision, slipping between gnarled roots and weaving through crooked trees that bent unnaturally toward the path. Nathan stumbled to keep up, heart hammering, lungs burning. "The forest will slow them," Rebecca panted. "The Veiled One's reach is weaker here." Nathan glanced back. Through a thin break in the trees, he saw them. Tall, faceless figures in black veils, standing just beyond the tree line, not giving chase, but watching. Always watching. "How far are we going?" Nathan asked, breathless. "Not far. There's a place the devoted avoid, an old site, older than Brackenridge itself." Nathan swallowed hard, trying to ignore the oppressive pressure closing in from all sides. The woods smelled of rot and damp decay. Every distant snap of a twig sounded deliberate, like something walking parallel to them, just out of sight. Eventually, they reached a clearing where the trees opened like a wound in the earth. In the center stood a stone circle, moss-covered, weather-worn, broken in places. At its center rose a jagged stone monolith, no taller than a man, covered in symbols Nathan couldn't recognize. Spirals, eyes, crescent slashes. Rebecca knelt beside the outer stones, running her fingers across deep grooves etched centuries ago. "This is the hollow," she whispered, "the place where it first woke." Nathan stared, chilled. "What is this place really?" Rebecca's voice lowered, almost reverent. "Before settlers, before names, they say something was unearthed here. Or summoned. The earliest families who came here believed they could harness its power, but it was never meant for them." Nathan stepped closer, his skin crawling as he approached the central stone. The air here felt different. Thinner, colder, heavy with an unseen charge. He traced one of the spirals with his fingers. The stone was warm. "How do you know all this?" he asked. Rebecca looked at him with tired eyes. "Because my family was part of it once. My great-grandfather helped found the Devoted, but he turned against them before his death, trying to stop what they were doing. My father continued his work in secret. And so did I." She paused, glancing around as if expecting the trees themselves to lean in and listen. "I've spent my entire life trying to understand it. The Veiled One isn't a spirit. It's not a god. It's something else entirely. Something that breaks the rules of this world." Nathan listened intently, trying to process the impossible weight of her words. "But why the sacrifices?" he asked. Rebecca's lips trembled. "It feeds on essence, on identity. The Devoted give it bodies, and it takes everything else. Faces, names, memories. That's why no one remembers the missing. It's as if they never existed." Nathan's mind flashed to the missing persons board in the sheriff's office, the faded photos, the nameless vacancies. "It devours their very being," he whispered. Rebecca nodded grimly. "Yes, and with every offering its influence grows stronger, as if summoned by her words." As if summoned by her words, a low guttural hum vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. The monolith pulsed faintly, emitting a dull red glow like a heartbeat from deep underground. Nathan backed away instinctively. Rebecca grabbed his arm. "We don't have long. The protection of this place is thinning." Nathan's voice shook. "Then what do we do?" She reached into her satchel, pulling out a rolled parchment sealed with black wax. Breaking it open, she unfurled a detailed map marked with various symbols, each one corresponding to different known sites of the Devoted. Ceremonial grounds, blood altars, hallowed wells. "There's a ritual," Rebecca explained. "An ancient countermeasure, but it requires 3 components. A piece from one of its vessels, a shard from its origin stone, and..." She hesitated, swallowing hard. "An offering of blood from one touched by the curse." Nathan's throat tightened. He didn't need to ask who that meant. Suddenly, the distant cracking of branches snapped their attention back toward the forest's edge. Shadows swirled unnaturally. Whispers carried on the wind like thousands of voices speaking in unison. "They're here," Rebecca hissed. Nathan's gaze shot to the monolith as its pulse grew stronger. "We need to move." Without another word, Rebecca led him deeper into the hollow, past the circle, into an overgrown pathway hidden behind thick foliage. The air grew colder with every step, as though descending into the belly of something ancient. After several minutes, they arrived at an abandoned chapel, half collapsed, its rotting wooden frame leaning precariously against the edge of a sunken ravine. Weathered symbols and crude runes were carved into the wooden beams. More eyes, more spirals. "This is one of their old sanctuaries," Rebecca whispered, "long before they built the chapel in town." The wind howled through the broken windows, carrying with it the faintest sound of chanting again. But this time, closer. Nathan's skin crawled. "Inside," Rebecca urged. They ducked through a broken doorway, their flashlights barely cutting through the thick gloom. Mold clung to every surface, and the smell of decay was almost unbearable. But at the center of the room sat what Rebecca had come for. An altar, cracked but intact, its surface etched with ancient markings similar to the ones on the monolith. "This is where we'll find the shard," she whispered. Nathan approached cautiously, watching as Rebecca produced a small silver blade from her pack. With careful hands, she scraped at a raised section of stone, dislodging a fragment no larger than a coin. The moment it came loose, the temperature plummeted. The air turned thick and metallic, as though soaked in blood. Then came the sound Nathan had grown to dread, the sickening, wet hiss of something shifting in the shadows. A figure materialized at the far end of the chapel, thin, taller than any man, its face concealed behind heavy black veils that undulated like smoke, limbs bending at impossible angles. The Veiled One. Its arrival was silent, yet its presence was deafening in Nathan's mind, a pressure that felt like nails dragging across his skull. Rebecca froze. "Don't move," she mouthed. Nathan's breath caught as the creature drifted closer, its feet never touching the ground. The veils writhed, and behind them, faint outlines of stolen faces flickered like trapped souls begging for release. The thing paused, sensing them, its head cocked slightly, as if amused. Nathan's legs trembled as icy sweat drenched his back. Suddenly the creature whispered, though not with a voice, but directly into Nathan's mind. "We see you now." Nathan's knees buckled, his breath a ragged tremor in the frozen air. The whisper from the Veiled One still echoed inside his skull, not as sound but as weight, heavy and suffocating. The bleeding altar behind him pulsed, its red rivulets snaking across the cracked stone like living veins. Rebecca's hand clamped tightly onto Nathan's arm, grounding him just as his vision swam dangerously toward blackness. "Don't look at it directly," she hissed through clenched teeth, her voice strained with a desperate urgency. "It feeds through attention." The Veiled One hovered closer, its featureless veil rippling unnaturally, as if responding to an unseen current. Beneath the dark fabric, faint outlines of stolen faces flickered like trapped insects pressed against a lampshade. Mouths silently screaming, eyes wide in perpetual terror. Nathan forced himself to avert his gaze, staring instead at the warped floorboards beneath his feet. But he could still feel the thing looming over them, studying, hungering. The creature's presence wasn't merely physical. It pressed into the recesses of his mind, poking through his most private thoughts like fingers raking through wet clay. Childhood memories, forgotten regrets, moments of shame, all laid bare beneath its probing. "You belong to us now." The words slithered through his consciousness again, and this time Nathan felt something wet trickle from his nose. Blood. His body trembled uncontrollably. Rebecca spoke in hurried whispers, her voice both incantation and plea. "The shard anchors its tether here. If we take it, its focus will falter." Briefly, Nathan could barely nod. His ears rang violently, drowning out even his own heartbeat. Rebecca gripped the tiny fragment of the origin stone tightly in one gloved hand and began pulling Nathan backward toward the ruined doorway. The Veiled One didn't follow. It simply hovered, watching, its attention now split between them and the bleeding altar behind. The crimson liquid spreading across the ground shimmered faintly under the pale light leaking through the chapel's broken roof. But the moment their feet crossed back into the overgrown trail, the pressure in Nathan's skull eased, like a hand releasing its grip on his brainstem. He stumbled into Rebecca's side, panting. "We need to move," she said urgently. "Now." They plunged back into the forest's suffocating embrace, shadows stretching unnaturally long as the moon peeked through torn clouds. The forest itself seemed to pulse, breathing with the same rhythm as the monolith's earlier heartbeat. Branches snapped somewhere behind them. Not just one, multiple. Deliberate. "They're sending the Taken after us," Rebecca whispered. Nathan barely managed a rasp. "The Taken? You've seen them before, faceless, veiled. But some of them, they used to be people. Sacrifices who weren't fully devoured, half-empty puppets bound to its will." The mere thought made Nathan's stomach churn. As they weaved through the dense woods, the growing sounds of pursuit made his panic spike. Branches cracked louder, dull thuds as feet, not entirely human, pounded against the damp earth. Suddenly, Rebecca yanked him to the ground, behind a massive fallen log. She raised a single finger to her lips, urging silence. Seconds later, 3 figures emerged into view. tall, unnaturally thin, dressed in decaying remnants of once human clothing. Their veils clung tightly over their heads, but unlike the veiled one, their movements were twitchy, spasmodic, jerking like marionettes suspended on frayed strings. One of them dragged a broken foot behind it with each lurch forward. Nathan held his breath as they passed within feet of their hiding spot. Their breath came out in harsh, raspy bursts, as if lungs struggled to remember how to function. And then one of the taken paused. Its head jerked unnaturally toward their hiding spot. The veil shifted, as though something underneath strained against the thin fabric. The creature tilted its head in a rapid, inhuman twitch. Nathan's pulse skyrocketed. Rebecca pressed her hand firmly against his chest, willing him to stay absolutely still. The taken sniffed the air, an ugly, wet sound, before its head jerked back toward the tree. Without warning, it let out a guttural, rasping shriek, a sound that made Nathan's skin crawl. The other two joined in the unholy call. Then, like bloodhounds redirected, they stumbled forward, away from the log, toward the deeper woods. Nathan exhaled shakily, his hand still trembling. Rebecca whispered harshly, "We don't have much time." They'll circle back once they lose the scent. Pushing forward again, they veered away from the main trail, descending toward a marshy hollow. The ground beneath their feet turned soft and treacherous. Mists curled along the surface like restless spirits. Rebecca pointed toward an old stone bridge, partially sunken into the bog. "That bridge leads to an old service tunnel the town sealed off decades ago. It's where the devoted store their relics, and where we might find what we need." The fog thickened as they crossed the fragile remains of the bridge. Nathan felt the wooden planks bow and groan beneath their combined weight, but they held, barely. At the far end, hidden beneath a curtain of hanging moss, was a rusted iron door embedded into the hillside. Rebecca knelt, pulling free an old brass key from inside her coat. How do you have the key?" Nathan asked, wiping sweat and blood from his brow. "My family once served the devoted," she answered grimly. "This was my father's task before he turned against them." The key clicked sharply in the lock. With a painful screech, the door creaked open, revealing a dark tunnel leading into the hillside, air thick with mildew and secrets long buried. They stepped inside. The door groaned shut behind them. The darkness was nearly absolute, save for Rebecca's flickering flashlight beam slicing through the black. The tunnel was narrow, the walls slick with moisture. Old railroad tracks, long unused, ran along the floor, remnants of when this place had once served as a mining shaft before being repurposed by the devoted. Ahead, a faint orange glow flickered. Nathan's breath caught. "Is that?" Rebecca's face tensed. "It's active." They rounded a bend and entered a chamber that widened abruptly. Torches, yes, actual torches, burned in crude iron sconces, bolted to the stone walls. Wooden shelves lined the perimeter, filled with relics Nathan couldn't begin to understand. Crude effigies, shrunken heads, bowls crusted with dried blood. At the far end stood a heavy wooden table, where an ornate dagger gleamed under torchlight. Its blade curved, carved with sigils matching those on the monolith. Nathan whispered, "Is that it?" Rebecca nodded. "The ceremonial blade, the final piece." But as she stepped forward to retrieve it, a new voice echoed from the darkness behind them. "I knew you'd come here, Rebecca." They spun around. Emerging from the shadows was Sheriff Algot, his face calm, his eyes cold and unblinking. But behind him, a faint shimmer of veil-like shadows danced unnaturally at the edges of his silhouette. The torch flames danced wildly, as if recoiling from the presence that filled the chamber. Sheriff Algot stood with unnatural stillness, the heavy shadows at the corners of the room pulsating like breathing lungs. His smile was too wide, too perfect, like a mask stretching over something rotten underneath. Rebecca froze, her fingers hovering just inches above the ceremonial dagger on the altar. Nathan, standing beside her, instinctively stepped back, bumping into one of the sagging wooden shelves, rattling the grotesque relics that lined it. The sheriff's voice was calm, but thick with something darker. "You really thought you could break the cycle, didn't you?" he said. "Foolish girl." Rebecca's voice cracked, but held firm. "It's not too late, Alcott. You don't have to. I never had a choice." His pupils dilated unnaturally, swallowing the whites of his eyes. "None of us did." Nathan's mind raced. Was he possessed? Controlled? Or was this who Sheriff Alcott had always been? The shimmering veil-like distortions at his back seemed to shift with every breath, like tendrils of black smoke curling and twisting, waiting. Rebecca moved first. In one swift motion, she snatched the dagger from the table and spun to face him, holding the blade between them like a ward against the darkness. Alcott's smile widened impossibly. "Oh, child, that blade isn't your salvation." His voice dropped, becoming layered, as if multiple voices were speaking in unison. "It's the final key." Suddenly, the shadows behind him surged forward. Nathan grabbed Rebecca's arm and yanked her back just as the mass of darkness lunged. A tendril of shadow barely missed Rebecca's leg, slicing through the air with a screech like metal tearing. The pair sprinted toward the exit tunnel, their footsteps echoing wildly in the confined space. Behind them, Alcott's laughter chased after like the hunting cry of something inhuman. "Go!" Rebecca shouted. The torchlight blurred as they ran, the air thickening with humidity and a metallic tang that burned Nathan's lungs. The iron door they'd entered through loomed ahead, but the sounds of pursuit grew louder, closer. It wasn't just the sheriff now. Multiple sets of distorted, shuffling footsteps joined the chase. The Taken were here. As they reached the door, Rebecca slammed the bolt open while Nathan threw his weight against the rusted iron. The door groaned under the force, but swung open just wide enough for them to squeeze through. Rebecca shoved the door closed and twisted the lock shut, the hollow clang reverberating behind them. For a few seconds, there was only the ragged breathing. But then, bang! Something heavy struck the other side of the door. Bang! Bang! The metal rattled violently, but it held. "Come on," Rebecca urged, dragging Nathan by the wrist. They staggered away from the hillside entrance, stumbling across the fog-drenched marsh, his hand's breath hitched. The voice outside was perfect, too perfect. Every inflection, every loving tone that only his mother used. But his mother had been dead for 8 years. Rebecca's grip on his arm was firm, grounding him. "It's not real," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't listen." The scratching at the door continued, rhythmic and patient, as if whoever, or whatever, was outside had all the time in the world. Nathan's heartbeat roared in his ears, but Rebecca's voice cut through the panic. "They know our weaknesses," she said softly. "They study us. Use what hurts most to draw us out." Nathan clenched his jaw, willing himself not to respond to the voice. But hearing his mother again, after so many years of silence, was like acid eating through his sanity. "Nathan, open up, honey, you know it's me." His hand trembled on the rifle stock. Rebecca's eyes locked with his. "Stay with me. Stay here." A sudden gust of wind blew outside, making the cabin walls groan. The whispering voices faded for a moment, replaced by an eerie stillness. Then came a low, guttural chant. Unfamiliar words twisting through the air like a foul breeze. It wasn't English. The cadence was ancient, ritualistic, and profoundly wrong. Nathan flinched. "What the hell is that?" "They're calling it closer," Rebecca answered, her voice barely steady. "The Veiled One." The flames in the fireplace flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows across the cabin walls. Rebecca quickly moved to snuff them out entirely. The cabin plunged into near-total darkness, illuminated only by the sliver of moonlight leaking through a gap in the curtain. Outside, footsteps retreated into the woods, dozens of them. Heavy, dragging, unnatural. Nathan exhaled shakily. "They're leaving?" Rebecca shook her head. "They're repositioning." Seconds later, the ground itself seemed to hum, a low vibration that Nathan could feel through the soles of his boots. Rebecca's face paled. "Oh God, they're starting the summoning." A sickly green glow began to pulse in the distance, just beyond the tree line. Strange symbols etched into the earth flickered to life, one after another, like the lighting of an ancient circuit. Nathan peered through the curtain gap. Figures in long hooded robes stood around the glowing glyphs, swaying in unison. At the center of the ring stood Sheriff Alcott, his eyes reflecting the unholy light like an animal's. Rebecca pulled him back from the window. They're accelerating the ritual. They know we're close to stopping them. Nathan's mind raced. The dagger. It's the anchor. Her voice was trembling now. As long as it exists, the Veiled One's passage into our world stays open. Nathan nodded. Then we destroy it. Now. But Rebecca hesitated. It's not that simple. My father said the dagger can't be broken by force alone. It must be unbound through the counterrite. Nathan blinked. You know it? She swallowed. I memorized it. But it requires proximity. We have to get close to the main altar. Nathan looked again at the ritual site. Right into the heart of that, he whispered. Rebecca nodded, her face set with grim determination. If we don't, Hollow's End becomes its feeding ground, forever. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The enormity of it all pressed down like a physical weight. Finally, Nathan stood, checking the rifle one last time. Then we finish this. Rebecca retrieved a small leather-bound book from her satchel, the same one her father had kept. Inside were the ancient words she'd studied for years, words she never thought she would actually have to say aloud. They slipped quietly out the back door of the cabin, careful to avoid the crunching leaves beneath their boots. The woods swallowed them instantly, dense with fog and pulsing with unnatural light. As they crept closer to the ritual site, the chanting grew louder, filling Nathan's skull like a rising tide. Each syllable throbbed like a heartbeat, vibrating inside his chest. Ventar Sul. Ithka Veshtor. Rebecca whispered. Don't repeat it. Don't even think it. Nathan nodded, biting his lip until he tasted blood. The trees parted into a natural clearing. Dozens of figures stood in perfect concentric circles, their chanting synchronizing with the pulsing glyphs on the ground. Sheriff Alcott stood at the center, his face stretched into an expression of unnatural ecstasy, arms raised to the heavens. Above him, the air shimmered as if the night itself were tearing apart. Thin, black tendrils snaked through a growing tear in reality, probing, searching. Nathan's stomach turned. It's already breaching through. Rebecca clutched the dagger tightly, her knuckles white. We get to the altar. Once I start the counterrite, you guard me, no matter what. Nathan nodded, but the words caught in his throat. They were walking into hell. They crawled behind a fallen log at the edge of the clearing, hidden but terrifyingly close to the ceremony. Rebecca began softly reciting the first words of the counterrite, barely audible over the chanting. I call upon the boundary, upon the old pact. Sever the tether that binds the Veiled One. The air around them shifted. Instantly, several robed figures jerked their heads unnaturally, as if sensing something foreign. Sheriff Alcott's head snapped toward their hiding place, though his eyes no longer looked entirely human. Black tendrils pulsed beneath his skin like worms. He sees us, Alcott's voice bellowed, impossibly loud. They dare defy the Veiled One. The chanting stopped. The cultists began converging on their position. Nathan raised his rifle. Go, finish it! Rebecca continued chanting louder, her voice shaking but steady as she stepped toward the altar. Nathan fired at the nearest figure, dropping him instantly, but others came relentlessly. Tendrils of shadow shot from the rift above, slamming into the earth around them like spears. The wind howled as reality bent and twisted under the entity's approach. Sheriff Alcott advanced toward Rebecca, his limbs jerking in spasmodic bursts, as if his joints bent in ways they shouldn't. Nathan fired again, this time directly into Alcott's chest. The sheriff stumbled, but black ichor oozed from the wound, and his smile only widened. Bullets won't save you, boy. The cultists closed in. Nathan clubbed one with the rifle's stock while Rebecca's chant reached its final crescendo. By the pact once sworn! Be gone! A blinding burst of light erupted from the altar, The dagger glowed white-hot, vibrating violently in her hand. Suddenly, crack! The dagger split in two. The rift above shrieked as tendrils snapped and recoiled. The cultists screamed, clutching their heads. Alcott convulsed, his body twisting unnaturally, but before Nathan or Rebecca could react, from deep within the rift, something far larger began to emerge. A single black, elongated limb pierced through, clawing at the sky. The veiled one wasn't gone. It was coming fully through. The moon had shifted by the time they reached the edge of the tree line, and the lights of Hollow's End shimmered faintly in the distance, like distant stars struggling against the creeping fog. But they didn't head toward town. Instead, Rebecca veered sharply left, toward a rocky outcropping that jutted above the tree line. Nathan glanced at her, panting. "Where are we going?" "My father's cabin. It's safe there for now." The narrow path twisted upward, the loose gravel crunching underfoot. As they climbed, Nathan's chest burned and his legs screamed, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Minutes later, the cabin emerged through the mist, small, isolated, the paint weathered and chipped from years of neglect. A single rusted lantern swayed slightly by the front porch, creaking under the night wind. Rebecca hurried up the steps, unlocked the heavy oak door, and ushered Nathan inside. The interior smelled of old wood and dust, but it was warm. Rebecca bolted the door behind them and pulled thick curtains across the few narrow windows. Only then did Nathan collapse into one of the chairs, his head pounding, lungs heaving. Rebecca knelt by the fireplace, striking a match to ignite the logs resting inside. Soon the crackle of flames filled the silence. They sat like that for several minutes, breathing, processing. Finally, Nathan spoke, his voice hoarse. "What is Alcott? What the hell did we just see?" Rebecca stared into the flames, her face drawn. "He's not possessed. Not exactly. The devoted. Most of them don't fight the veiled one. They invite it. They serve it. Let it anchor itself into them." She looked over at Nathan, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Alcott allowed himself to become a vessel. That's why the shadows cling to him. He's part of it now." Nathan tried to swallow, but his throat was raw. "And the dagger?" Rebecca nodded at the curved blade resting on the nearby table. "The original founders used that dagger to open the first gate. It's a ritual blade, both key and offering." Nathan's stomach churned. "So why did you take it?" "Because if we destroy it," she whispered, "we break the tether." Nathan sat up, hope sparking through the fog of fear. "We can destroy it?" Rebecca hesitated. "Maybe. My father believes so. But the risk..." She trailed off. Before Nathan could press her, a sharp crack echoed outside. Like a branch snapping underfoot, both of them froze. Another sound followed, slow, deliberate footsteps approaching the cabin. Nathan instinctively reached for the hunting rifle leaning by the door. Rebecca dimmed the fire quickly, plunging the cabin into near darkness. The footsteps drew closer. Then, a low scratching at the front door. Not knocking? Scratching? The sound of nails or claws dragging along the wood grain. Nathan's heart hammered inside his ribcage, his grip on the rifle tightened. Then, "Rebecca, open the door." It was Sheriff Alcott's voice, but outside. Still, his voice wasn't quite human anymore. The words bent unnaturally, like someone impersonating speech with broken vocal cords. Nathan whispered, "How did he..." "He can't come in unless we open it," Rebecca whispered. "Not yet." Then, a second voice joined Alcott's, softer. Female. "Please, let me in." Nathan froze. It was his mother's voice. The blast of light from the shattered dagger still shimmered faintly in Nathan's vision, but it was already overwhelmed by what loomed above. The rift had not closed. It had expanded. Above them, reality had torn open like a festering mouth, wide and hungry. The Veiled One's appendages, long and thin as skeletal branches, pushed further into their dimension, twisting unnaturally against the swirling void. The air itself vibrated, humming with a frequency that made Nathan's teeth chatter. He stumbled, pulling Rebecca behind a cluster of jagged rocks as the surviving cultists screamed in both ecstasy and terror. Many fell to their knees, their bodies convulsing, eyes rolling white as the entity's influence ravaged their minds. Sheriff Alcott stood at the center of it all, his face now fully grotesque, a mass of writhing tendrils where his mouth once was. His voice boomed with something not entirely his own, something that echoed both from his throat and from the rift above. "You cannot sever what was never meant to be broken." Rebecca clutched Nathan's arm, her breath ragged. "It's feeding," she gasped. "The ritual's unstable, but the energy, it's pulling from everything." Nathan's eyes darted around the clearing. The sigils on the ground, once flickering, now burned steadily, drawing life from the cultists, from the land itself. Trees around the perimeter withered, their bark blackening and splitting open as if screaming silently. "We have to stop it," Nathan hissed. Rebecca's voice cracked. "The counter-right failed. Without the dagger—" "No," Nathan cut her off. "Not failed. Interrupted. The tether weakened when you broke the dagger. There must be another way to sever the connection completely." His mind raced through every conversation he'd ever had with her father, every whispered warning from the locals, every half-remembered folktale. There had always been a second half to the old stories. A failsafe. The land itself. Nathan whispered, the realization hitting him like a hammer. The original pact. Rebecca's eyes widened. "The blood offering," he nodded. "The original settlers of Hollow's End made a bargain, didn't they? An exchange of blood to hold the Veiled One at bay." Rebecca's lips trembled. "A sacrifice. We reverse it." Nathan's voice was steady despite the horror churning in his gut. "We give it back what was taken. Close the breach the way it was opened." "But who?" she started, but Nathan was already moving. They crawled along the rocks, edging closer to the ritual circle as Alcott and the remaining cultists stood entranced by the expanding rift. The roar of the wind drowned out all but the chanting, the words now slurred, corrupted, bleeding into pure noise. Rebecca's gaze fell upon the central stone altar, the original one, older than the settlement itself. Etched into its surface were faded runes, long eroded but still visible in the flickering light. "The altar," she whispered. "It can still serve." Nathan nodded. "If we can get there." Suddenly, one of the cultists broke free from the entranced circle, as if sensing their presence. His eyes were black voids, leaking inky tears down pale cheeks. He shrieked and lunged toward them. Nathan fired. The blast from the rifle echoed like thunder, tearing through the man's chest. But two more emerged, scrambling on all fours like feral animals. Rebecca screamed as one grabbed her leg, dragging her toward the center of the clearing. She kicked wildly, but the thing's grip was inhumanly strong. Nathan charged forward, slamming the butt of his rifle into the creature's skull, cracking it open with a sickening pop. Rebecca scrambled to her feet as the second cultist lunged at Nathan's back. Before it reached him, an ear-splitting howl erupted from the rift, deep, guttural, as if 1,000 voices screamed in unison. The cultist froze mid-leap, its head twisting unnaturally before collapsing in a heap of spasming limbs. They didn't wait to see if more were coming. Nathan and Rebecca sprinted toward the altar, the storm above roaring louder with every step. The ground trembled, cracks splitting open beneath their feet, releasing foul-smelling vapors into the air. As they reached the stone, Rebecca's hands trembled. "I don't know if I can do this." "You have to," Nathan urged. "You know the old rites better than anyone, and if it requires blood, I won't let you sacrifice yourself," she shot back, her eyes blazing. "I'm not planning to," Nathan said, drawing a knife from his belt. "But we need to bind it. My blood starts the offering." "Your words finish it." He sliced a deep gash across his palm, allowing his blood to spill onto the ancient altar. The runes flared to life, glowing a deep crimson. Rebecca steadied herself, breathing heavily, and began the chant. The words older than the town, older than even the first settlers. By pact undone, by blood returned, sever thy hold, O ancient one. The rift above shrieked, the sky twisting into impossible angles as more of the Veiled One's form clawed its way into the world. The sacrifice was working, but it was also provoking the entity into desperation. Alcott turned then, his tendrils flailing, eyes locked on the altar. "No!" he howled in a voice that was not his own. "The pact is mine!" He charged. Nathan stepped between him and Rebecca, rifle raised, but this was no longer the man he once was. Alcott's body contorted mid-stride, bones snapping as he grew taller, thinner, his face splitting into a vertical maw lined with rows of tiny, wriggling teeth. Nathan fired once, twice, but the creature barely flinched. Rebecca screamed, her chant faltering. "Keep going!" Nathan shouted. He dropped the rifle and drew his knife, bracing for the abomination's charge. The creature slammed into him, sending them both tumbling across the blood-soaked earth. Nathan stabbed wildly, driving the blade into its chest, but the tendrils wrapped around his throat, squeezing, pulling him closer to its gaping maw. Stars burst behind his eyes as his vision dimmed. The world returned in fractured shards of color and sound. Nathan gasped violently, his lungs burning as if he'd been underwater for hours. The crushing weight around his throat was gone. He coughed, rolling onto his side, vision swimming as he struggled to orient himself. Around him, the ritual ground was in chaos. The blinding white light had scorched the earth, leaving a perfect circle of blackened soil where the altar once stood. The rift above still gaped, but it flickered now, unstable, pulsing erratically like a dying heartbeat. A low moan pulled his attention. A few yards away, Rebecca lay sprawled, her hands pressed against her head, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered remnants of the incantation under her breath. She was alive, but barely conscious. Nathan dragged himself toward her. "Rebecca!" Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. I finished it. The words." Her voice was raw, barely audible. "But it's not closing. Why isn't it closing?" Nathan gritted his teeth, scanning the devastation. All around them, the remaining cultists lay dead or twitching in seizures, their bodies convulsing like broken puppets. The corrupted sheriff, or whatever was left of him, had dissolved into a puddle of oily black fluid, steaming under the cold night air. But the Veiled One was not retreating. Instead, its tendrils coiled around the edges of the breach, as if clinging desperately to the thinning fabric of reality. The rift pulsed again, and a sound like distant, warbled screaming echoed across the clearing. Nathan realized with a sickening certainty. The ritual weakened it, but it wasn't enough to banish it. The entity was adapting. "It needs an anchor," Rebecca rasped, "something still holding it here." Nathan's mind raced. The pact was collective, tied to the blood of the original settlers. Rebecca nodded weakly. "A bloodline." Nathan froze. His stomach turned as a dreadful connection clicked into place. Rebecca. She wasn't just the descendant of the original families. She was the last living direct heir of the founding bloodline. Her blood wasn't just a key. It was the final lock. "The tether," Nathan whispered, voice cracking. "It's you." Rebecca's face went pale. "No." Nathan knelt beside her, gripping her trembling shoulders. "If it draws on your bloodline, then breaking that link means I die," she whispered. The words hung heavy in the air. Nathan's mouth went dry. His instincts as a protector screamed in protest. There had to be another way, some loophole, some clause in the twisted rules of the pact. But the truth was staring them both in the face. The wind shifted, and a new vibration thrummed beneath the ground. The rift trembled, as if sensing their hesitation, growing brighter, bolder. The Veiled One's tendrils lashed downward, like serpents testing their prey. "We're out of time, Nathan." Rebecca's voice was stronger now, her eyes suddenly calm, resigned. "This was never supposed to be survivable." "No," Nathan rasped. "We break the pact, not you. There has to be another vessel, something to carry the burden. Rebecca stared at him, eyes welling with tears. You can't take it. Maybe I can. Nathan's jaw clenched. Maybe it doesn't have to be by blood, but by choice. The idea was insane, reckless, but desperate minds birth desperate gambles. Before Rebecca could object, Nathan yanked the ritual knife from his belt, slick with his earlier blood, and slashed a deeper cut across his palm, pressing the wound against the still glowing runes embedded in the earth. By my blood, I claim the tether, he roared, his voice echoing unnaturally. The runes flared violently, reacting to his sacrifice. The entity above shrieked in protest, the rift spasming as its connection was challenged. A blast of invisible force knocked Rebecca back as Nathan's body convulsed violently. The air grew impossibly cold, breath freezing mid-air as shadows coiled around him like black silk. The Veiled One's tendril shifted course, retracting from Rebecca and lunging toward Nathan instead. They pierced into his flesh, not physically, but as if stabbing into his very soul. Nathan screamed. His mind was ripped open, flooded with incomprehensible visions. Other worlds, other dimensions, endless oceans of writhing, monstrous forms beyond reason or sanity. He saw the origin of the Veiled One. Not a god, but something older, something hungry from before time itself. He felt his identity dissolving, piece by piece, and yet he held on. Through sheer will, through Rebecca's sobbing voice calling his name, through the memory of every life that would be spared if he succeeded, Nathan held on. The rift narrowed, the tendrils recoiled. The Veiled One's howls turned to something like frustration, panic, even. As its foothold slipped, Nathan's entire body was shaking violently, blood seeping from his nose and ears. Rebecca crawled to his side. Nathan, please, fight it. His pupils were dilated, eyes nearly pure black. I can't, he gasped. Suddenly, the ground beneath them split wide open with a deafening crack. A final tendril whipped downward, faster than either could react, striking directly at Nathan's chest. The clearing was deathly still. Rebecca knelt beside Nathan's limp body, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. His eyes were wide open but unfocused, pupils blown so wide they swallowed the irises entirely. Blood still oozed from his nose and ears, pooling beneath his cheek in the dirt. Above them, the rift no longer pulsed but hovered in a steady, unnatural stasis, like a frozen wound in the sky. The Veiled One's tendrils hung still in midair, twitching subtly as though confused, hesitating, as if waiting. Rebecca's breath came in short, shallow gasps. She didn't dare touch him at first, but as the seconds stretched like hours, she reached trembling fingers to his neck. There was a pulse, weak but present. Nathan, she whispered, voice cracking. Come back, please. His eyelids fluttered. For a moment there was only emptiness behind his stare, but then his lips parted and a voice escaped. It wasn't quite his. There is a door. The words were slow, strangled, laced with a tone far too ancient to belong to Nathan. Rebecca recoiled instinctively but forced herself to stay. This was still him, somewhere inside. The door must stay closed, Nathan continued, voice strained, but it is hungry. Always hungry. Rebecca glanced upward again. The Veiled One hovered, watching. It had shifted its focus entirely to Nathan now. He was no longer simply a sacrifice. It had found something new inside him, a vessel. The ritual had succeeded in severing the bloodline tether. Yes, but at a cost. Now Nathan stood on the edge of becoming something far worse, a conduit. She felt the bitter weight of realization settle in her stomach. If the entity couldn't feed through her lineage, it would feed through him instead. The tremors beneath the ground resumed, faint at first, but building steadily like distant thunder. The breach remained open, a narrow slit of white against the pitch-black sky, but stable, as though waiting for Nathan's full surrender. No, Rebecca whispered. No, I won't let it take you. Nathan's head jerked toward her, eyes gleaming. For a heartbeat she saw something, not him. A flash of unfathomable depth, cold and ancient. "You cannot stop what was always meant to be, child of the pact." The voice rasped, no longer Nathan's. "He opened the door. He belongs to me now." Rebecca scrambled back, mind racing. Her eyes landed on the scattered remnants of the ritual. The ancient book, the Codex Obscura, lay nearby, pages torn and fluttering from the earlier blast. The obsidian dagger was still lodged halfway into the ground. The cult's altar had been obliterated, but the circle remained. The runes etched into the dirt glowed faintly, still pulsing with residual energy. The ritual hadn't fully collapsed. It was incomplete, but usable. Rebecca's hands shook as her mind latched onto a desperate plan. If the entity still required a vessel, maybe she could rewrite the bargain altogether. She grabbed the dagger, ignoring the searing heat radiating from its handle. Blood instantly welled from her palm as the blade bit into her skin. Nathan, or the thing wearing his voice, watched her, head tilting unnaturally. "You dare bind what you do not comprehend." Rebecca forced her bleeding hand to the soil, pressing it into the runes. Her voice was unsteady at first, but gained strength as she spoke the words she barely understood, pulled from memory, from hastily translated pages of the Codex, from the feverish notes of the cultists. "Invertum pactum sanguinis, vinculum mutatio, non heres sed donator." The runes flared violently. The ground shook harder now, no longer a distant tremor but a violent quaking that threatened to split the earth beneath them. The rift above flickered as the veiled one shrieked in fury, its tendrils whipping angrily through the air. "You offer yourself," the voice hissed through Nathan's lips. "E sakera tieren," a fool's bargain. Rebecca's throat tightened, but she continued. "If blood must bind, let it be mine. I give no lineage, only flesh, no inheritance, only sacrifice." The words ignited the circle. Blinding arcs of crimson and white lashed outward like lightning, surrounding both her and Nathan in a violent storm of energy. Nathan's body convulsed, his scream finally his own again. For a moment, Rebecca thought it might be working. The tendrils withdrew from Nathan entirely, curling inward toward the breach, as if recoiling from the rewritten pact. But then, the entity struck back. The runes fractured under the strain, cracks spider-webbing outward as the earth roared. The rift pulsed wider once more, this time dangerously unstable, threatening to fully open. And in the middle of it all, Nathan's body was dragged upward by an invisible force, floating, suspended like a marionette. His eyes glowed with a sickly white light as he twisted in the air. Rebecca screamed his name, but no response came. Only the unnatural, grating voice of the Veiled One echoed now, both through Nathan's mouth and all around them at once. "You offer sacrifice, but I choose whom to devour." The sky itself seemed to split as lightning without thunder streaked across the void. Rebecca fell to her knees as wind and energy howled around her. The ritual was spiraling out of her control. The entity wasn't rejecting her offer. It was playing with her, toying with both of them. For a few moments, the world seemed to freeze. The only sound in the clearing was Rebecca's labored breath, ragged and uneven. The unbearable silence pressed against her eardrums, as if reality itself were suffocating under the weight of what had just happened. Nathan's body lay crumpled before her, unnaturally twisted, limbs splayed at grotesque angles. His face, pale, streaked with dried blood, was frozen mid-scream, mouth wide open, eyes still glowing faintly, as if remnants of the entity's possession lingered. Rebecca crawled toward him on bloodied hands and knees. Her fingers trembled as she brushed his cheek. "Nathan, please." No response, no breath, no pulse. Her chest seized with pain, and a scream built in her throat, not from terror, but raw grief. But the Veiled One wasn't finished. A deep guttural rumble emanated from the widening rift above, and tendrils of black fog slithered downward like serpents, curling and twisting, reaching for both the corpse and her. The entity had broken the ritual, shattered the pact she attempted to rewrite, but now it hungered. Your defiance was amusing. The voice hissed from nowhere and everywhere, reverberating through the air like 1,000 overlapping whispers. But all bargains have a price, and you will pay in full. Rebecca staggered to her feet, wiping blood from her face. Her mind raced desperately. The ritual was collapsing entirely, but fragments of the binding circle still glowed faintly beneath the dirt. Pieces of power remained, not enough to defeat the entity, but perhaps enough for one final act. She looked at Nathan's broken body, tears welling in her eyes. She had failed him, failed everyone. No, she thought. I can still end this. I can still deny it what it wants. The dagger was still clutched in her palm. The blade's obsidian edge shimmered with residual heat from the broken ritual. Rebecca stepped back into the circle's remains and began chanting again, this time not a binding, but a sealing, a desperate gambit. Claudatur porta, Claudatur infernus. The ground pulsed beneath her. The remaining symbols reignited weakly, flaring sporadically as her words fought against the overwhelming force of the rift. The tendrils writhed violently, as though sensing her intent. You will not deny me, the Veiled One roared, its voice no longer a whisper, but a bellow that shook the very earth. Rebecca kept chanting, voice cracking but unanima, non-transit, clawed at door. The rift flickered, but so did her strength. The pressure around her intensified, like the air itself had become a crushing weight. Blood streamed from her nose, her ears, her eyes. The entity lashed out, one massive tendril whipping downward with lethal speed. Rebecca barely rolled aside, the ground exploding where she had stood. Dirt and debris rained down as another tendril struck, tearing through trees like paper, snapping trunks with deafening cracks. You cannot contain what was never meant to be bound, child of man, the voice boomed. You offer your flesh, then I shall take your soul. Suddenly, Nathan's body convulsed again. Rebecca froze. His eyes flickered, faint, distant, but they moved, and for the briefest second, Nathan's voice rasped through bloodied lips. Do it, Rebecca. Seal it, while you can. Tears blurred her vision. He was still fighting, buried somewhere beneath the entity's weight, but his will had not broken entirely. Summoning every last shred of resolve, Rebecca raised the dagger and drove it into her own forearm, allowing blood to pour freely onto the fractured runes beneath her feet. The symbols flared brighter now, feeding on her sacrifice. Claudulet, she screamed. The rift convulsed violently above as the ceiling began to take hold. The tendril shrieked, writhing upward, retreating toward the collapsing breach. Lightning without thunder flashed again, pure white, as the Veiled One screeched in fury. This is not the end, it howled. I will return. The bloodline remains. The breach constricted rapidly, from a gaping wound to a thin scar of light, until finally, with a final burst of blinding radiance, it snapped shut entirely. Silence returned. The tendrils evaporated into black mist, dissolving into the air like smoke under wind. Rebecca collapsed to her knees, gasping, her vision swimming. The crushing pressure lifted, but the world spun in dizzying circles. Her skin burned where blood had pooled, and her arm throbbed from the self-inflicted wound. Nathan's body no longer moved. The glow behind his eyes had faded at last. The forest stood eerily still, as though nature itself held its breath. For a few long moments, Rebecca sat there in the dirt, barely conscious, staring at the place where the rift had once torn open the sky, a void that was now just black night. She had sealed it, at a cost. But was it truly over? The silence answered nothing. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods behind her, far beyond the clearing, came a faint sound. Not the growl of the Veiled One, not the rumble of ritual energies, but something else entirely. Soft, wet, footsteps, sloshing through mud. Slow, measured, coming closer. Rebecca turned weakly, heart locking inside her chest as she strained to see through the shadows. And then she saw it. A figure, human in shape but tall, gaunt, draped in something tattered, its head cocked unnaturally as it emerged from the dark, pale eyes reflecting faint moonlight. The voice that came from its mouth was somehow familiar, not Nathan's, but her father's. "You were never meant to leave, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey into the curse of Hollow Creek." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next terrifying tale. We appreciate every one of you for supporting the channel and helping us dive deeper into the darkest corners of horror folklore. Your comments, theories, and feedback keep the stories alive. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some truths are better left buried.